Speaker Hasty, thanks for joining us. I know this is a really busy week for you. The repeal of 50A, a number of other reforms to the police. I'm wondering how this came about, that it happened so quickly. I mean, obviously, of course, we know of the death of George Floyd that just upset millions of people around the world. But the legislature really turned this around in about a couple of week period. What were the factors that led to this week and these votes?
Well, Karen, first let me say thank you for having me. I can almost say question, asked and answered. I think when you saw worldwide, not just in Minneapolis, not in New York City, not just in California, when you had people around the world literally laying down in the ground with their hands behind their backs, saying, "I can't breathe." I just think it raised just the awareness and hearts and consciousness of people around the world. And, all the years that I've been involved in politics and even growing up as a young man, I've never seen the worldwide reaction to an incident like this one. And there's been many others that have been just as tragic as this, but for some reason this one really just caught everybody, even in the in the midst of a pandemic.
Yeah, well, it's also coming at a time when you're the first African American speaker in state history. Your counterpart in the Senate is the first African American woman to lead the Senate. Do you think because you and Senate Leader Andrea Stewart-Cousins, you've kind of lived this story, do you think that has helped move a lot of this stuff along?
I think it would be easy to say because of me and Andrea's life experiences that this was easy, but I think this was a culmination of even members who weren't caucus members, understanding the pain of their constituents. So I think it really was that it was a movement of elected officials heeding the voices of the people that we represent, in addition to our life experiences. But because, like I said, if you look at the voting on these bills, you even see some Republicans are even voting for these bills. So, it would be easy and, quick and nice to say, well, it's because of my life experience. But I think it's because of everybody's life experience, caucus members and non-caucus members, as well as just the general public saying this is, there has to be a change in how these things are happening in our communities.
Yeah, well, that said, do you think these measures can restore trust with the police? I mean, it just seems at this point it's going to take even more than what you're doing this week, right?
Well, I always say, will any bill we pass, will anything that we do, will it cure the situation? But always as an elected official, as I've always felt in my 20 years of office, it's you try to make things better. And I do think this will, hopefully make things better. Will it make it perfect? Will any of these instances never happen again? Probably not. But I do think you, as an elected official, you just try to make it better. You just try to make things more fairer and more equal. And I'm hoping that these bills accomplishes some of that.
And New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio, among others, has called for defunding the police. Do you think that that's an answer?
Well, I think what everyone is saying is they really want government to focus on social spending in other areas. It's not just about policing. It's about people, income equality. It's about access to education. It's about people needing mental health services, social work services, spending for children. So I think people are saying there are other things that we really need government to look at and concentrate on. And that's the outtake or the sense that I get from when people talk about defunding the police.
Now, there are opponents to what you're doing. The police unions say that especially the repeal of 50A is an attack on law enforcement, and they say they haven't had enough input. This was done too quickly. They say it's like the bail reform that was done in 2019, that part of it had to be walked back in 2020, and they're just definitely not on board with this. Have you been speaking to them, and what would you say to them?
Well, listen, I could say I'm sure the police departments, are not happy, and I don't think anyone. It's not an attack on police. It's not an attack on police departments. I think people are just unhappy with bad policing and bad police, not the entire police department or good police. People lay their lives on the line. So it's not about that. It's just about giving the public confidence that those who have been entrusted with protecting people are doing that. So I would by no means say that this is an attack on the police department. I still have tremendous amounts of respect for the police and the job that they do. It's a job that I could not do to every day put your life on the line for others. So it's not an attack on the police. It's really trying to hold accountable bad policing.
Right. I wanted to ask you about the state's finances, one of the many crises that we're facing in the state. $13 billion deficit now because of COVID-19, the related shutdowns. The governor says if he doesn't get federal aid, he's going to make $8 billion in cuts to schools, localities, hospitals. And the governor does have the power to do that under some powers that you guys gave him in the budget. Are you going to let him go ahead with that if he thinks that's the best idea?
I'm hoping we never get to that point. I'm trying to put my faith in our federal representatives. As I've said many, many times, 20% cuts to local governments, to healthcare, to education is just unacceptable in the eyes of myself and my Assembly majority colleagues.
But of course, I was just going to say, but of course, Democrats are in charge in the U.S. Senate, so that's what you're up against is the Republican senators who have said they want to take a pause.
Well, you do have Republican governors asking for money. I think since some have tried to make this a blue state, red state, you have some purple states that and red states that are asking for aid. So I do have faith in that the federal government will step up. But if they don't, I think we're going to have a long conversation about revenues.
Yeah, and what would that entail? As you well know, some of the proposals are raising taxes on the wealthy, raising taxes on Wall Street transactions. Are you open to those ideas?
I would say everything's on the table because, again, it's just unacceptable and unimaginable for us to do 20% cuts to the lifeblood of communities. And so I would just say everything's on the table right now.
Thanks very much for giving us your time, Mr. Speaker. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show. Take care and stay safe.